The inside of the crystal tower was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. Spiral ramps wound upward through the hollow center, and the walls pulsed with gentle light that seemed to respond to their footsteps. As they climbed, Jake could see through the transparent crystal to the city below, watching the daily life of the Veltar continue in its peaceful routine. The Keeper has lived for over 1,000 years, Lyra explained as they climbed. She remembers when our people first came underground. She knows all our history. 1,000 years? Jake was amazed. How long do your people live? Much longer than humans. But lately, many choose not to live their full lives. They give up before their time. When they reached the top of the tower, Jake found himself in a circular room with walls made entirely of clear crystal. The view of the underground city was breathtaking, but what caught his attention was the figure sitting in the center of the room. The Keeper was ancient even by Veltar standards. Her blue skin was marked with intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories, and her white hair flowed around her like water. When she looked at Jake, he felt like she could see everything about him, his fears, his hopes, his entire life story. So, the Keeper said in perfect English, this is the human who risks everything for strangers in a storm. You speak our language very well, Jake said. I have been listening to your people for many years. Your radio signals, your television broadcasts, your internet communications. I know much about human culture. The Keeper gestured for Jake to sit on a crystal formation that had been shaped like a chair. Lyra and the elders took positions around the room, but Jake felt like he and the ancient being were the only ones there. Tell me, Jake Morrison, what do you think of our city? It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. But it's also the saddest. The Keeper's eyes widened with surprise. Sad? Why do you find beauty sad? Because your people built something perfect, but perfect isn't the same as alive. You created safety, but you lost the ability to grow. And you think growth requires danger. Jake thought carefully about his answer. I think growth requires challenges. It doesn't have to be danger, but it has to be something that pushes you to become more than you were before. The Keeper was quiet for a long moment, studying Jake with those ancient eyes. Your people face many challenges. Wars, diseases, natural disasters. Does this make you happy? No, it doesn't make us happy, but it makes us strong. Every problem we solve teaches us something new. Every challenge we overcome makes us better at facing the next one. But you also suffer. You die young. You fight among yourselves. Is this better than peace? Jake looked out at the crystal city below. I don't know if it's better, but I know it's alive. When humans face problems, we don't just survive them. We learn from them. We turn our troubles into tools. Tools from troubles, the Keeper repeated thoughtfully. This is interesting concept. Lyra spoke up from her position near the wall. This is what I try to tell the council. Humans make good things from bad things. They use problems to become stronger. Yes, Jake said. When we first came to your planet, the storms were a problem. So we built better shelters. The thin air was a problem. So we made better breathing equipment. Every challenge pushed us to innovate. The Keeper stood up and moved to the crystal wall, looking down at her people. We solved our biggest challenge by hiding from it. The terraforming machines made the surface dangerous, so we came underground. But then we stopped solving problems. Because you didn't have any more problems to solve, Jake said. You created a perfect world where nothing bad could happen. But nothing good could happen either. Explain this. Jake joined the Keeper at the window. Look at your people down there. They're safe, they're fed, they're healthy. But do you see? Anyone exploring, creating, taking risks to discover something new? The Keeper was quiet for a moment. No, we have forgotten how to dream of better things. That's what challenges do. They force you to dream of solutions. They push you to imagine a world that doesn't exist yet and then work to create it. But the terraforming machines still operate. The surface is still dangerous. Jake felt excitement building in his chest. What if we could shut them down? What if we could work together to solve the problem that drove your people underground? The keeper turned to look at him sharply. You think this is possible? I don't know, but I think it's worth trying. My people have technology and experience. We're machines. Your people have advanced science and knowledge of the planet. Together, we might be able to do what neither could do alone. Lyra moved closer to them. The young ones would help. Many of us want to see the surface world. Want to feel rain and wind and sunshine. But the council would resist, one of the elders said. Many fear that surface world would destroy our peaceful way of life. Maybe it would change your way of life, Jake said. But change isn't the same as destruction. Change can be growth. The keeper walked slowly around the room, her ancient mind working through the possibilities. If we worked with humans to shut down the terraforming machines, what would happen then? Then your people could choose. Some could stay in the underground. Cities if they wanted safety and peace. Others could return to the surface and explore what it means to live under open sky again. And humans would help with this choice. Humans love to explore and build and discover. We'd be honored to help your people reclaim their planet. The keeper stopped walking and looked directly at Jake. This would be dangerous work. The terraforming machines are protected by ancient defenses. People could die. People are already dying, Jake said quietly. Lyra told me that your young people are giving up, letting sadness kill them. Maybe it's better to die trying to live than to die from never trying at all. The room fell silent, except for the gentle humming of the crystal walls. Jake could feel the weight of history in this moment, the sense that decisions made here would affect millions of lives for generations to come. Finally, the keeper spoke. I will call a gathering of all the councils from all the cities. We will discuss this proposal. But I warn you, many will be afraid of change. Fear is natural, Jake said. But courage is choosing to act despite fear. And if we decide to try this dangerous plan, will your people help us? Jake thought about Colonel Harrison and the other humans back at the base. They would think he was crazy, but they would also understand the importance of what was being offered. I can't speak for all humans, but I believe they will help. My people love a good challenge, especially one that helps others. The keeper smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. Then let us see if two very different peoples can work together to bring life back to a dying world. Lyra moved to Jake's side and took his hand. This is beginning of something wonderful. Jake looked out at the crystal city one more time then, up through the transparent ceiling toward the surface world far above. Yes, he said. I think it is. The tunnel sloped downward for what felt like miles. Jake's flashlight cut through the darkness ahead of them, showing smooth walls that looked like they had been carved by water over thousands of years. Lyra moved confidently through the passages, her blue skin giving off a faint glow that helped light their way. How deep does this go? Jake asked, his voice echoing off the walls. Very deep. We travel for 2 hours more before we reach first meeting place. Jake's legs were already getting tired from the constant downward walking, but he pushed forward. The air was getting warmer as they went deeper, and he could smell something strange, not bad, but different from anything he had experienced before. What's that smell? He asked. Crystal gardens? My people grow things near here. You smell plants that grow only in deep places. As they continued down, Jake began to see a faint light ahead. It wasn't the white light of his flashlight, but something softer and more colorful. Blues and greens and purples seemed to dance in the distance. Is that your city? No, just small outpost. But you see real Veltar lights for first time. When they reached the source of the light, Jake stopped and stared in amazement. The tunnel opened into a large cave filled with plants that glowed with their own light. Tall trees with silver bark stretched up to the ceiling, their leaves shining like stars. Smaller plants covered the ground, creating a carpet of blue and green light that moved gently in the warm air. This is incredible, Jake said. This is nothing. Wait until you see real city. 3 figures emerged from behind the glowing trees. They looked similar to Lyra but older, with more elaborate clothing and markings on their skin that seemed to move and change like living tattoos. Jake reached for his weapon, but stopped when Lyra placed her hand on his arm. "These are elders," she said. "They come to meet human." The tallest of the 3 elders stepped forward and spoke in the musical language Jake had heard from Lyra. She responded in the same language, and they talked for several minutes. Jake could tell from their tones that some kind of discussion or argument was happening. Finally, Lyra turned back to Jake. "Elders surprised you really come. They not sure humans could be trusted. What did you tell them?" "I tell them about Storm, about your kindness, about how you risk career to come here." The tall elder spoke again, this time in broken English. "Human Jake Morrison, we hear much about your kind from our watching. You are first human to enter our domain." "I'm honored," Jake said, not sure what the proper response should be. "You bring weapons to our peaceful place." Jake looked down at his sidearm and rifle. "I brought them for protection. I don't know what dangers might exist down here. And if we order you leave weapons here..." Jake thought about this carefully. Giving up his weapons would leave him completely defenseless, but refusing might end any chance of meaningful contact. "If you promise safe passage and give me your word that I can retrieve them when I leave, I'll leave them here." The elders spoke among themselves in their musical language. After a few minutes, the tall one nodded. "We give word. Your weapons stay safe here." Jake carefully placed his rifle and sidearm on a flat rock near the entrance to the garden cave. It felt strange to be unarmed in an alien world, but it also felt right somehow. "Now we take you to see real city," Lyra said. They traveled deeper into the tunnel system. The passages became wider and more elaborate as they went, with carvings on the walls and more of the glowing plants providing light. Jake began to see other Veltar moving through the tunnels, all stopping to stare at him with curiosity and wonder. "Word spreads fast that human is here," one of the elders said. "Many people want to see you. Are they afraid of me?" "Some afraid, some excited, some confused. We never have visitor from surface world before." After another hour of walking, they reached a massive opening in the rock. Jake stepped through and found himself standing on a ledge overlooking the most amazing sight he had ever seen. The underground city of the Veltar stretched out below him for miles in every direction. Thousands of crystal formations rose from the cave floor like towers, each one glowing with its own light. Buildings had been carved into the crystals, connected by bridges and walkways that sparkled in the colored light. Gardens of glowing plants grew everywhere, creating patches of green and blue throughout the city. "How many people live here?" Jake asked in amazement. 3 million in this city alone," Lyra said. "And there are 12 other cities like this, one across our world." Jake tried to imagine the scope of the civilization he was seeing. Millions of intelligent beings living in perfect harmony in underground cities that made human architecture look primitive by comparison. "It's beautiful," he said, "but it's also sad." "Sad? Why sad?" "Because you're all hiding down here instead of living on the surface where you belong." The tall elder who had spoken earlier moved beside Jake on the ledge. "You think we belong on surface? I think all intelligent life belongs under open sky. This is amazing, but it's still a prison. Prison with safety. Prison with peace. Prison with no storms or danger. But it's still a prison." They descended into the city through a series of ramps carved into the rock wall. As they walked through the streets, Jake saw more of the Veltar daily life. Children played games that involved manipulating light with their hands. Adults tended gardens of glowing plants or worked on intricate crystal sculptures. Everyone moved slowly and peacefully, but Jake noticed something troubling. "Where are the young adults?" he asked. "Lyra, what you mean?" "I see children and older adults, but not many people your age." Lyra's expression became sad. "Many young people become sick with emptiness. They stop eating, stop working, stop caring about anything. Some die from sadness. Why? Because they feel trapped. They want more than safe life in crystal caves. But they not know what more could be. Jake was beginning to understand the real problem facing the Veltar. They had created a perfect society, but perfection had become a trap. Without challenges or growth or change, their people were dying inside. They reached the center of the city, where the largest crystal formation rose like a mountain from the cave floor. This crystal was different from the others. It pulsed with white light that seemed to come from deep inside the rock. Heart of City, the elder explained, where Keeper lives. Most wise of all Veltar. The Keeper wants to meet me? Keeper wants to understand humans. Wants to know if your people can help us remember how to live. Jake looked up at the massive crystal tower and felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. 2 civilizations were depending on what happened next, and he was just one soldier who had made a crazy decision during the storm. What if I can't help? What if I don't know the answers you're looking for? Lyra smiled and took his hand. You already help. You show us that taking risks can lead to wonderful things. Together, they entered the crystal tower to meet the Keeper and begin a conversation that would change everything. Jake stared at Lyra for a long moment. Going with her would mean leaving his post without permission and potentially putting himself in great danger. But something about her words made him feel this was important, maybe the most important thing he would ever do. I can't just disappear, Jake said. My commanding officers will think I'm dead or captured. You tell them truth. You tell them about me, about my people. They might not believe me. They might think I'm losing my mind. Lyra stood up and moved to a small mirror hanging on the tent wall. She looked at herself for a moment, then touched her blue skin with one finger. They believe when they see me. Jake thought about Colonel Harrison and Dr. Chun back at the main base. They were good people, smart people, but this was beyond anything they had trained for. First contact with an alien species was supposed to happen through official channels, with diplomats and scientists and careful protocols. If I bring you to my base, they'll want to study you. They'll have thousands of questions. They might not let you leave. I understand risk, but hiding time is over. My people and your people need to meet. The storm had stopped completely now. Jake could hear the normal sounds of the desert night outside his tent, small animals moving through the rocks, the wind whistling softly through the strange formations, the distant hum of equipment from the main base. Let me think about this, Jake said. This is the biggest decision I've ever had to make. I wait, Lyra said simply, but not long. My people worry when I not return. If I stay too long, they think humans capture me. Jake realized she was right. This situation was balanced on a knife's edge. If he waited too long, her people might assume the worst and decide humans were dangerous. If he moved too fast, his own people might make mistakes that could ruin everything. How would we do this? How would I meet your people without causing panic on both sides? Lyra sat back down and looked thoughtful. I take you to meeting place first. Small group of my people wait there. Elders who decide important things. If meeting go well, then we go to big city. What kind of meeting place? Cave entrance, not far from here. Place where surface and deep world touch. Safe for both sides. Jake made his decision. All right, but I need to tell my people something. I can't just vanish. What you tell them? That I'm going on a reconnaissance mission. That I found evidence of intelligent life and need to investigate. Lyra smiled. Not lie. You did find intelligent life. Jake started gathering his essential. Gear, water, food, first aid kit, radio, weapons. He left most of his heavy equipment behind, but took enough to survive for several days if needed. How far is this meeting place? He asked. 1 day walk. We go when sun comes up. Jake looked outside through a small gap in his tent flap. The sky was starting to get lighter in the east. Dawn was still a few hours away, but they could see the first hints of morning. I should send a message to my base before we leave. Jake activated his radio and set it to the secure frequency. Base Alpha. This is Morrison. Do you copy? After a moment, a voice crackled through the static. Morrison, this is Base Alpha. We were worried about you. How did you handle the storm? Storm passed without major problems. I need to report something important. Go ahead. Jake looked at Lyra, who was listening carefully. I found evidence of intelligent life, possible first contact situation, requesting permission to investigate. There was a long pause. Then a different voice came on the radio. Colonel Harrison himself. Morrison, repeat your last transmission. Sir, I have evidence that this planet has intelligent inhabitants. I need to investigate further. What kind of evidence? Jake thought carefully about his answer. Direct evidence, sir. I can't say more over the radio. Another pause. Morrison, return to base immediately. Do not investigate on your own. Sir, I think this is time sensitive. If I wait, we might lose this opportunity. That's an order, Morrison. Return to base now. Jake looked at Lyra again. She was watching him with those large, dark eyes, waiting to see what he would do. He thought about his duty as a soldier, about following orders and staying safe. Then he thought about what this contact could mean for both species. Sir, I'm going to investigate. This is too important to wait. Morrison, if you disobey a direct order, you'll face court-martial. I understand. Sir, but I believe this is the right thing to do. Jake turned off his radio before the colonel could respond. He knew he had just ended his military career, but somehow that didn't seem important anymore. You risk much for people you just meet, Lyra said softly. Sometimes you have to take risks for things that matter. As the sun began to rise, Jake and Lyra left the tent together. The desert looked different after the storm, cleaner somehow, with the dust settled and the rocks washed clean. Jake had never seen this planet look so beautiful. They walked for hours across the rocky terrain. Lyra moved like she knew every stone and hill, leading them through paths that Jake would never have found on his own. She seemed stronger in the daylight, more confident, like being outside in the open air gave her energy. Your people will be angry when you not return to base, Lyra said as they climbed over a low ridge. Probably, but they'll understand eventually. How you so sure? Because humans are curious. When they learn what I found, they'll want to know more. They stopped for lunch in the shade of a tall rock formation. Jake shared his military rations with Lyra, who found the packaged food fascinating. She examined every item carefully before eating it, asking questions about how it was made and how long it could last. Human food is very practical, she said. It has to be. We're always moving, always exploring new places. We need food that travels well. My people food different. We grow everything in deep places, in special gardens under crystal lights. Very beautiful, but not practical for travel. Maybe you could learn to make food like this, for when you explore the surface. Lyra nodded eagerly. Yes, we need to learn many practical things from humans. In the afternoon, they reached the meeting place. It looked like just another hill to Jake, but Lyra led him to a hidden opening between two large rocks. The entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for one person, and it sloped downward into darkness. This is it? Jake asked. Yes, your people call it cave, but it much more. It is doorway between worlds. Jake looked into the dark opening and felt his heart beat faster. Once he went through that entrance, there would be no going back. Everything would change. Are you ready? Lyra asked. Jake checked his equipment one more time, then looked at this alien woman who had already changed his. Life forever. I'm ready. Together, they stepped into the darkness and began their descent into a world no human had ever seen. Jake heated some water in his small camping stove and made tea for both of them. Lyra held the warm cup in her hands like it was precious treasure, watching the steam rise from the hot liquid with fascination. She took small sips, and her eyes widened with each taste. "This is good," she said. "We have drinks in our world, but nothing like this." "It's just tea," Jake said, sitting across from her. "Pretty basic stuff." "Basic," Lyra repeated the word. Thoughtfully, "You humans use this word often. What is basic to you is miracle to us." The storm outside was starting to calm down, but the wind still whistled through the tent supports. Jake watched Lyra carefully, trying to understand what he was dealing with. She seemed peaceful enough, but he had been trained to be careful around unknown threats. "Tell me about your people," Jake said. "How long have you been watching us?" Lyra set down her teacup and looked at him seriously. "Since your big ship first entered our sky. We see everything from our deep places. We study your language, your habits, your technology." "Our ship? You mean when we first arrived 6 months ago?" "Yes. But we know about your kind much longer. We watch your home world too." Jake nearly choked on his tea. "You've been watching Earth. How is that possible?" Lyra smiled that beautiful smile again. "We have ways. Technologies your people not yet understand. We see far places, hear far voices, learn about many worlds. But if you have such advanced technology, why do you live underground? Why haven't you explored space like we have?" The smile faded from Lyra's face and she looked sad, "Because we became afraid. Long time ago, our world was different. Green and blue like your Earth. But something happened." "What happened?" Lyra stood up and moved to the tent wall. She pressed her hand against the material, and Jake could see her listening to the storm outside. "Ancient ones came here. Before my people, before anyone we know, they brought machines. Big machines that change everything." "What kind of machines?" "Weather machines. They make storms like this one. They change our air, our water, our land. Ancient ones wanted to make our world into something else, something for their kind to live on." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. "Terraforming. Machines? They were trying to terraform your planet." "Terraform," Lyra said slowly. "Yes, that is good word. They change everything. But then ancient ones disappear. Maybe they die, maybe they go to other worlds, but machines keep working. For thousands of years, machines keep changing our world. And that's why your people went underground?" Lyra nodded. "My ancestors had no choice. Surface become too dangerous. Storms too strong, air too harsh, water too poison. They dig deep, make homes in crystal caves, live safe in deep places." Jake was beginning to understand the scope of what Lyra was telling him. "The storms we experience here, they're not natural?" "No, all made by machines. 7 big machines in different places on our world. They make storms, they make hot and cold, they make everything difficult for life. But your people survived." "Yes, we survive, but surviving is not living." Lyra's voice became even sadder. "In deep places, we safe, but we forget how to grow. We forget how to explore, how to dream, how to take risks. We become like our crystal caves, beautiful but cold, safe but not alive." Jake stood up and joined her at the tent wall. Outside, the lightning was getting weaker, and the thunder was further away. The worst of the storm was passing. "Is that why you came to the surface? To remember how to live?" "Yes. Some of us, the young ones, we feel empty inside. We watch your people on surface and see something we lost. You face danger every day, but you not afraid. You explore, you build. You keep trying even when things difficult." "We're afraid plenty," Jake said with a laugh. "Trust me, we get scared all the time. But you do things anyway. That is what we forget how to do." Lyra turned to face him, and Jake could see tears in her strange, beautiful eyes. "My people dying, Jake Morrison. Not from sickness or war, but from giving up. We have everything we need in our deep places, but we losing what make us alive. How many of your people are there? Millions, maybe more. Our cities stretch far underground, but fewer babies born each year. Fewer people care about tomorrow. We becoming like stones, hard and lasting, but not growing. Jake felt a deep sadness for this alien woman and her people. He could imagine how it must feel to live in a perfect, safe world, but lose the will to really live. You said you've been studying us. What did you learn? Lyra's expression brightened a little. We learned many things. Your people never give up. When problems come, you find solutions. When enemies attack, you fight back. When worlds are dangerous, you still explore them. That's what humans do. We're stubborn that way. Stubborn, Lyra repeated. Another good word. We study your wars, your explorations, your science. We see how you turn bad things into good things, how you make tools from problems. Tools from problems? Yes. When your people face storms, you build stronger houses. When you face disease, you make medicine. When you face enemies, you become better fighters. Problems make you stronger. Jake nodded. I guess that's true. We do seem to work better when things are difficult. That is what my people lost. We solve a big problem by going underground, but then we forget how to solve small problems. We forget how to face new challenges. And now you want to learn from us. Lyra looked nervous for the first time since entering his tent. Some of us do, but others afraid. They think humans bring danger to our safe world. What do you think? I think danger better than slow death. I think challenges better than empty safety. The storm outside was definitely weakening now. Jake could hear the wind dying down, and the lightning flashes were getting rare. Soon it would be safe to go outside again. Lyra, if your people have been watching us for months, why did you wait until now to make contact? Because I young and foolish, she said with another smile. Elders say wait, study more, be careful. But I want to see rain, want to feel storm. Want to meet humans face to face. And now that you have, now I know we right to be interested in your kind. You show kindness to stranger in storm. You share food and warmth and safety. You ask questions, but not with anger or fear. Jake felt proud of her words, but also worried. What happens now? What happens when your people learn you made contact? I not know. Maybe they angry. Maybe they afraid. Maybe they excited. Lyra looked at him seriously. But I think this is beginning of something important. Something that changed both our peoples. Change? How? You need to see our world to understand. You need to meet our people, see our cities, learn our story. And you need to learn how to live on the surface again. Yes, we need to remember what we forgot. We need to learn from humans how to be alive again. The tent had grown quiet except for their voices. The storm was almost over, and soon Jake would have to decide what to do about this extraordinary situation. Will you come with me? Lyra asked quietly. Will you meet my people? Jake Morrison pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders as another flash of lightning lit up the dark sky. The thunder that followed made his tent shake like a leaf in the wind. He had been stationed on this alien world for 6 months now. But the storms here still amazed him with their power and fury. Kepler 442b was nothing like Earth. The desert stretched for miles in every direction, broken only by strange rock formations that looked like giant fingers pointing at the sky. Air was thin and dry most of the time, but when storms came, they brought chaos. The lightning here was different too, crackling with colors he had never seen before. Deep purples and bright greens that danced across the clouds. Jake sat on his small camp chair and checked his equipment one more time. His radio was working fine, his weapons were clean and ready, and his water supply would last another week. Forward Operating Base Alpha was built to handle anything this planet could throw at them, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt dangerous. Wind howled outside his tent with a sound like a wild animal. Jake had heard that sound many times during his 6 months here, but it never stopped making him feel uneasy. The base commander, Colonel Harrison, had warned all the soldiers about the storms when they first arrived. "These aren't like storms on Earth," he had said. "They come fast, they hit hard, and they can last for days. Stay inside, stay safe, and wait them out." Jake was following those orders now, but he wished he was back in the main building with the other soldiers. His tent was on the outer edge of the base, which meant he got the full force of the storm. The walls of his tent bent inward with each gust of wind, and he could hear sand and small rocks hitting the outside like bullets. He reached for his coffee mug and took a sip of the cold liquid inside. The base had good coffee, but it never stayed hot long in this weather. He was thinking about heating it up again when the lightning flashed once more, brighter than before. For just a moment, he thought he saw something moving outside his tent. Jake set down his mug and grabbed his flashlight. He pointed it at the tent wall, but could see nothing through the thick material. The wind was so loud now that he could barely hear his own thoughts. He was about to sit back down when something hit his tent hard enough to make the whole structure shake. "What the hell?" Jake said to himself. He reached for his sidearm and held it ready. Wild animals were rare on this planet, but the scientists had warned about strange creatures that sometimes came out during storms. Jake had never seen one, but he wasn't taking any chances that another impact hit the tent, this time on the sidewall. Then another. Something was definitely out there, and it was trying to get in. Jake moved to the center of his tent and pointed his weapon at the entrance flap. His heart was beating fast now, and he could feel sweat on his forehead despite the cold air. The entrance flap suddenly burst open, and a figure stumbled inside. Jake almost fired his weapon, but something made him stop. The figure was tall and thin, much taller than any human. Water was dripping from what looked like clothes. But they were strange clothes, made of material that seemed to shine in the dim light of his tent. "Don't move," Jake said, keeping his weapon pointed at the intruder. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure slowly raised its hands. Jake could see now that it was definitely not human. The skin was pale blue, almost white, and seemed to glow slightly in the darkness. The face was similar to a human face, but the eyes were larger and darker. The hair was white and seemed to move on its own, like it was floating in water. "Please," the figure said in a voice that was clearly female. "I mean no harm." Jake was shocked. The alien was speaking English. Broken English, but English all the same. He kept his weapon ready but didn't shoot. "You can talk?" "Yes," she said. "I learned your language. I listened to your people for many months." "Listen to us? How?" The alien woman looked around his tent, taking in all the human equipment and furniture. She seemed fascinated by everything she saw. "Your radio signals, your communications. We hear everything." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the aliens had been listening to their radio communications, they knew everything about the human settlement. They knew how many soldiers were here, what weapons they had, and what their mission was. "We?" Jake asked. "How many of you are there?" Before she could answer, another flash of lightning lit up the tent. Jake could see her more clearly now. She was beautiful in a strange, otherworldly way. Her blue skin was smooth and seemed to have patterns on it, like tattoos that moved and changed. Her clothes were made of something that looked like liquid metal, and they fit her perfectly despite being soaked from the storm. "Many," she said simply. "We live below, underground. We watch you since you arrived. Why haven't you made contact?" Before now. The alien woman moved closer to him, and Jake noticed that she was shivering. The storm outside was getting worse, and the temperature in his tent was dropping fast. Despite his training and his suspicions, Jake felt sorry for her. "We afraid," she said. "Your people have weapons. Your people fight wars. We peaceful people." Jake slowly lowered his weapon, but kept it in his hand. "Then why are you here now? Why did you come to my tent?" She looked at him with those large, dark eyes, and Jake felt something he couldn't explain. It was like she was looking into his soul, seeing everything about him in just one glance. "The storm," she said. "I was on surface when it come. I get lost. I see your light, and come here for safety. You were on the surface, but you said your people live underground. Yes, I was exploring. We young ones, we curious about surface world, about sky and stars and ... double quote. She paused, looking confused. What is this water that falls from sky? Jake stared at her. Rain? You mean rain? Rain, she repeated the word carefully. We never know. Rain. We never feel waterfall from above. This is first time. The significance of what she was saying hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. These aliens had never experienced rain. They had lived their entire civilization underground, never knowing one of the most basic experiences of life on most planets. Your people have never seen rain? Jake asked Dot. She shook her head. Never. We know only crystal caves and deep places. This storm, this rain, this is why I come to surface. To see what humans see every day. Jake made a decision that would change everything. He put his weapon back in its holster and gestured to his camp chair. Sit down, he said. You're safe here. The alien woman looked surprised, but moved to the chair. Jake grabbed his spare blanket and handed it to her. She took it with wonder, running her fingers over the rough material like it was the most amazing thing she had ever felt. What's your name? Jake asked. She made a sound that was like music mixed with wind chimes. It was beautiful, but impossible for human vocal cords to make. Seeing Jake's confusion, she thought for a moment. You may call me Lyra, she said. It is close to my real name. I'm Jake, he said. Jake Morrison. Jake, she repeated, and smiled. It was the first time Jake had seen her smile, and it was like watching the sun rise. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the tent, two very different beings sat together in the warm glow of Jake's battery-powered lamp, beginning a conversation that would change the fate of two worlds.